As a boom operator, the microphone placement technician, it is your decision as to what you put a microphone on so that you can give it to the sound mixer to record and thereby deliver it to post. But how do you determine what is important and what's not? Well, the biggest indicator is what's in the sides or the portion of the script that you're doing that day. If you go through that, it's going to have dialogue. That's a big indicator of something that you would want to get, the dialogue, because the actors cannot be replicated in post. Sure, they may be able to get a door opening or closing. If you can't exactly get that on a boom because you're too far away and you're not going in for coverage on that, then that might be something that you could potentially put a plant on if you want to. Or you could say, there's probably enough special effects in the special effects library in Culver City in order to make the door sound decent, and they can maybe match it up from something far away as long as you cue a microphone edit. But if, for example, you have people that have their hands up because they've just been captured and they say, take off your weapons, and they start taking off their vest and dropping it. Perhaps those sounds are going to be used not just for the impact on the ground and to give post an idea of what those sounds should sound like, but it's also timing. If I drop something from here, then you would want to hear that impact. And sure, you can easily guess as to within 1 or 2 frames what it would be, and post is going to do that, and America's going to buy it. But most of the time, it gives post a good idea as to what to actually expect. So if you can put a boom underneath, coming in from the bottom in order to capture that sound, so that way that post has a good solid track of it, that's a good idea. Just like if there's a wide shot and you have actors up there, even if they're laved, it's a good idea to try to get a microphone up close to try to capture that dialogue. And something like a cardioid, if a couple of people are walking in or something like that, that's important. Now, provided it's in the script, that's a good indicator of just something that you would want to capture. If someone gets mad and hits a table, or a judge slams the gavel, you might want to get the smack sound, even though it's not going to echo and stuff. Post can make it echo. But getting that sound live is going to make it sound really, really good, especially for the dailies. What you would turn in, they would sync up the sound with the picture, put it through something like DAX so that way the producers can look at it and see how it looks and sounds. Now, that is right there very important, because that's going to determine whether or not they think you're doing your job. And hopefully they'll say, oh, yes, this is very good. The sound mixer is doing a great job. And they won't even think about the sound because they're too busy looking at picture. But the fact of the matter is, if it doesn't sound good, it doesn't look good. So if it looks good, hopefully it's because it sounds good too. But if you look in the sides and it doesn't say anything about footsteps, then you might want to try to cover those up using something like carpets, because obviously footsteps in a business type walk and talk down a hall might not be important. And if you can't put carpets throughout the whole entire hall, therefore you might consider foot foaming or padding the shoes of the people that are going to be walking down the hall, because footsteps are only going to take away from the dialogue that you're trying to record. So the big rule of thumb I use is, what do you want to capture and what is keeping you from capturing it? So if someone takes a sip and they put it down right over their lines, I'm going to say, yikes, let's see if we can straighten up that timing a little bit. Now, usually I will go to the first AD and say, can the actor not put their glass down on the line? If I have good rapport with the actor, or if I just want to, I might go over to the actor and say, just to make you aware, you put down the cup right over your line. You put down the cup right over your line. And they might say, oh, okay. So I won't do that. Then the actor gets it. What you don't want to do is go over and say, don't put down your cup over your line, because in that circumstance, you're directing. You're telling them an action to not do. They might not take kindly to that, especially if they're more experienced. Now, if an actor walks into a door and slams a door on the line, unless they're told to do that by the director, you should probably address that and say, just to make you aware, you close the door right on your line. Or go to the first AD and say, could this actor or actress not close the door on their line? Both techniques are completely valid. Now, some directors will not take kindly to you speaking to their actors. I had a director that I was working with on something over 10 years ago, and it was a TV show. We were very, very fast trying to get an hour-long show turned out in 6 days, and we were usually doing 15 to 18-hour days, and the director did not tolerate me speaking to their actors. He said, Alan, you speaking to my actors? No, sir. So I would always go to the first AD, because you did not want you did not want to go and talk to his actors. But sometimes the actors, if you even mention something to a first AD, could this actor perhaps not close the door right over their dialogue? Oh, okay, I won't do that. Now, this is also key. If you're dealing with younger actors, sometimes they can be trained very effectively. I was working on a show about maybe 8 or so years ago, and the actors were mostly kids. Like the main star of the show was a teenager. Her sister was a teenager. Younger brother, obviously a kid, younger boy. But then a lot of their friends were also teenagers. And these are actors that we're talking about here. So what I was able to do is mention, just to make you aware, you close that refrigerator right on your line. Oh, okay. And then they would start to notice things like that, because it kind of became one of those things of, they're kind of learning their craft on set. They're learning what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And when they say, is that really a problem? Well, you're closing it right over your dialogue. We want to hear that line. Oh, yeah, okay. And they therefore might adjust their performance to make sure they can capture that line. It works great if you train younger actors to do good habits that they're going to take with them into the future of their acting projects and stuff that they do. Because they're going to grow up, become professional adult actors, and therefore continue to do the things you train them to do. And on this one show, I trained those actors good. As a matter of fact, they were trained so well that they would actually say, in the middle of a take, they would put down something, put it down right on my line. Let me take that again. Okay. And then it was really awesome. I mean, after a while, I was just kind of smiling like, they got it. So if you are looking at the sides and it says, actor drops this in shock, well, chances are they're not going to drop it and say their line at the same time. That timing is probably going to work to your advantage. But if they drop something because they're in anger, they slam something down over their line, they chances are don't need to do that. Now, if it's something that involves a lot of emotion and passion, you might not want to address it directly with the actor. And in that case, you might want to address it with the first AD, because if they say slam down that and scream at the same time, if you try to adjust that timing, they might not take kindly to it, because it adjusts and changes the performance. So kind of use your best judgment on that. However, anything that happens on that set that is either in the script or something that is key to the scene, like, for example, somebody walking upstairs in a horror movie, you want to make sure you capture those. Anybody that has a prop and they click something or something like that, try to get a microphone very close to it. If it is not important, then perhaps like somebody taking a drink and sticking it down on the ground, or not the ground, perhaps, let's say a table. If they're taking a sip and putting it down, that putting it down noise does not need to make a sound when you're punching in for coverage and no longer seeing the table. So if, for example, it's a wooden table and it's a glass of, maybe chai, let's say China tea, and they put it down and it makes a click, clop noise, a wood on, China hitting the wood type sound. In tights, you could put down something like a coaster or a little soft washcloth or something for them to put it on. That way it's not making that noise over your dialogue. If someone is walking, obviously you would wish they would walk on carpet, but sometimes the dolly grips are going to put down dance floor all over the place, and you're like, that was a carpeted floor. Why are we hearing them clip, clop, clip, clop? In that case, you might want to add padding to their shoes. Even though they may say, well, can you put down carpets instead? Well, we took up the carpets to put down dance floor. The whole thing is dance floor. Would you mind if we put down, something on the bottom of your shoes, because I can't cover up the dance floor. It's needed for the dolly. So that is a little bit of the indication to hopefully give you an idea of what's important and what's not. Now, that is not always what is important to capture, because sometimes the director will say, give an extra line to that person over there, or we own this actor. The actor's just there and not saying any lines in the scene. I'll give that person a line, in which case you might need to throw a boom over them, maybe put a lav on them, a plant on them, something along those lines. However, even if it's not scripted, that is important to capture. Now, what is not important to capture? Anybody who is a background person that is not an actor or somebody that they would want to upgrade, which by that I mean a background person that they suddenly give a line to and they're going to get like $2,000 more per day. If that is not the case with one particular person, then you want to perhaps mention to the first AD, should this person be talking? Is this one of our actors? Should this person talk? And they'll most likely say, oh, no, we don't want to record them. In that case, then they'll say, don't talk. Don't say anything out loud. That's not important. But if it is an actor that you own or the company owns that just doesn't have a line for that particular scene, and they say, just ad-lib something. In that case, you might want to throw a lav on that person if that's a lav type thing that you do. You always put a lav on whoever speaks. If it's not, can you put a plant on them? If not, throw a boom over them. That's fine too. But make sure that you capture that person's line, because even though it's not in the script, because it's going to make it into the show, it's important for the director. Anything that is in the show on set that is not important, like, for example, a background person speaking, that doesn't need to happen. You talk to the first AD and get that thing shut down. Now, I've also been on shows before where a background person just does not get it, and they keep on delivering a line. And I've had a sound mixer, actually more than one, say, throw a lav on that person. We're not supposed to. If you throw a lav on that person, you're therefore recording them. The first AD is going to be furious at you because that sound is not going to make it into the show. It's not important to the director. It's not important to the show. And if you put a lav on them, you're basically upgrading them automatically. And the first AD and everybody's going to be furious at you. At that case, you really need to drive home the point that if that person speaks again, my sound mixer is going to want to put a lav on them because they're not going to want to miss that line. I am responsible for capturing all the dialogue on the set. And if this background person speaks, I need to capture it. So if that person speaks again, I'm going to have to put a lav on them. And they're going to say, they're not supposed to, and they're going to be upset. If you try playing that game with the first AD, they're going to get very upset with you. But if you don't get that dialogue, the sound mixer is going to get mad at you also. So it's one of those things you have to position it just right. Is this background person supposed to speak? Or is this person supposed to speak? No, that's a background person. I'll make sure they don't talk. If they talk again, that's a problem. Don't let that happen. So in a nutshell, what's important to the scene? In your mind, think about it. Anything that's scripted is obviously important, even if it ends up on the cutting room floor because they've cut up the scene a little bit and parts of the line or part of the lines and stuff are going to disappear. That's for post to determine. If it's in the script, you want to record it. Anything extra that the director tells you is important, you want to capture. But anything else doesn't need to be in there. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.